Hello, I'm Dragoș, and in this video we are going to see how we can install Dokploy on a VPS server. So basically this will be part of a series that will help us deploy application inside Dokploy. We're going to create some nice application in here and see how you can basically replicate something like Varser or Netlify on your own VPS server. And besides that, you have also the flexibility to install any application that is working in Docker and take advantage of the VPS server you have. So yeah, this is Dokploy, and we are going to see how we can install it and configure it. And in the past, I've created some video with Hetzner and what they're offering. So basically, right now they have a very good plan with some cheap VPSs that are very powerful. And I am taking advantage of them so I can go and install Dokploy and run some of my applications directly in Hetzner. But for this, you can use whatever VPS provider you want, like Drop, DigitalOcean, or other alternatives that are out there, like Ragnar maybe, and so on. But yeah, for this tutorial we're going to focus on Hetzner because they're offering the best VPSs from my point of view if you're thinking to the price. So I've also created an article in here with all the details that we're going to do and the commands, and basically we're going to install everything. We're going to configure Dokploy, we're going to secure our VPS server, and at the end we should have Dokploy working nicely and secured on our VPS server. So in this first part we're just focusing on installing Dokploy, and then we're going to continue and deploying some monitoring application and other applications in there that can help us do things. And yeah, the first thing it will be to go and create a server. So for creating a server, just create a Hetzner account, and in here you have the options to choose between the architecture. I will use the x86 and I'll have the cost optimized one because I want to use one that it has 8 CPUs and 60 gigabytes of RAM, and this will cost about $12. And in here we're gonna choose Ubuntu for this. In here you have the options to choose the data centers. Right now these are only available in Europe, and in here we are gonna enable IPv4 and IPv6. And I already have a key created in here, so you can go and create a key if you don't have and add it to your VPS provider. And in here I already have a firewall. We're going to activate this firewall and we're going to check the rules. The VPS server will also have a firewall configured in there, but we're going to use CrowdSec to secure our server. And yeah, then you put the name and you hit deploy. I already have that created. And in here, for instance, if we're going to check the firewall rules, I just wanted to let you know what it's open. So you'll see that I have port 22 that will allow connections. I have the 443 for HTTPS, 80 and 3000 for Dokploy. And in here, this is another port, but this is for monitoring. We're going to see at that point. So in here, the server is already created with all of these things. And right now, if we are going to check the servers, I have in here the servers with this IP address. And if we're going to check the article, the first thing that we're gonna do is to connect to the server and update everything in there, so everything to be up to date. Then we're going to create a user and we're going to disable the root login and do some SSH configurations. We are going to check all of this right now. And let me open the warp, and in here I will connect to my server. So to do that, you are gonna do SSH-C with your key and root with the server IP address like this. Okay, I already have something in here. Let me remove this, and right now let's try again. Like this, because it had a different IP address in the past, this server. Okay, I see that it is saying that it needs a restart, but we're gonna do that After we are going to update the VPS server like this. So this is the command sudo apt update and sudo apt upgrade -i. So it can run this without anything that needs to be approved. So let me do that. And this will update all the packages on this VPS server to the latest version. And afterward, we are going to also reboot this server, so to have a clean startup. This shouldn't take a lot of time. Okay, so let me reboot it like this. And then we are gonna connect again in there, and that we are going to do is to add a user. For my server, I will choose the Dragos user, which is my name, and I will add it to the sudo group. And then we are going to do some configurations, because I don't want, when I'm moving to root, to be prompting for a password when I'm moving from Dragos, and we are going to see all of this. So let's go and add this user. So we don't use root to log in. So I will SSH again into the server. And right now this is started. And what I'm gonna do, I will do the add user Dragos. And in here I'll set a password. Okay, you can skip this like this. Okay, and right now the user is added, and we are gonna add it to the sudo group, so we can have a power usage. And in here we're gonna use the passwordless sudo, and this command we're gonna help us do that. So you're gonna see when this will be needed. So let me run this. Okay. Okay, so right now we have the user added, and what we are gonna do is to copy our SSH key from root to this user, because it's already set up in the Hetzner VPS under root. So let me create the folder like this, and in here I will just copy the root SSH authorized key that I've chosen when I've created a VPS server in there. Of course, you can just go and create a new one and add it in here, but it's easier for me like this. Okay, and what this thing will do, it will move the ownership to Dragos for the SSH folder, and this will change the read and write, and this will change the read and write for authorized key, because it needs 600 to work. And I will just copy all of these commands. Okay, and I have run them, and right now we're gonna see if this it's working. So what I will gonna do, I will open a new terminal in here. I will move to the keys folder where I have the keys. And what I will gonna do in here, I will just gonna do like this, and I will change the user with the Dragos. Let me put the correct IP in here. Okay, so right now I'm logged in with Dragos, and you see that right now sudo su minus to move to root. Like this, you will be directly sent to root, so you don't need to put any password for Dragos user. And right now let's move to the next step. So the next step, it will be to remove the login access for root, and for this we are going to need to go into the SSH config and modify the permit root login to no. And what we are going to do is to do it like this. So vi, and in here I will search for permit root. Okay, and in here you see that I already have something with permit root login, so I will uncomment this and I will set it to no. like this. Okay, and then we're going to restart SSH, so these configurations to be in there. Okay, so right now SSH is restarted and the root login should not be allowed anymore. If we're going to exit in here and we're going to do it like this, you'll see that you will not be allowed to log in with the key on the root. Okay. And another thing that it's good to have is to add the client alive interval and the alive count max in there. So in case there will be a lot of SSH connections, to log you off after 15 minutes. So I will just go and also add these configurations in there. And I will gonna go and add them at the end, because this should not be in there. So I will add a new line with O and I will copy this. I will save the file and then we are just going to restart again the SSH, so it will go and use these settings. Okay, so SSH is restarted right now. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go and add some swap in here. So if we're going to run top, we're going to see that this server, even if it has 60 gigabytes of memory, it doesn't have any swap file. So it's good to have a swap file added to this server, because there will be some idle processes that were gonna be moved by the OS in the swap space. So in this way the memory, it will not be utilized. And for this I will gonna add a swap file of 8 gigabytes. So I will gonna change this from 2 to 8 because the server is bigger in my case. I'm gonna modify also the documentation to use the 8 gigabyte swap, not the 2. That was an old thing. And then we're going to run this command. So basically this will create the permissions for the swap file. It will make it as a swap. It will mount it and then it will be added in the VPS tab. So it will be mounted when you are going to restart the server. Okay, so right now if we're going to run top again, you are gonna see that you have 8 gigabytes of swap in here added. Okay, then the next thing that we're gonna do is to go and install CrowdSec. So basically CrowdSec, it's something similar with the fail to ban. So basically this is better than fail to ban, and it will gonna monitor the SSH logs, and in case it sees something that is not right, it will block the IP. And I've created already a video in detail with CrowdSec and the configuration and what it is in there. I will let the video into the description if you want to see more about CrowdSec. But for this we're gonna install the repo and then we're going to install CrowdSec. So I'm gonna do like this. So I'll fetch the install and then this will gonna install the repository for us, and then we're going to go and install CrowdSec. So in here, if we're going to see this, you're gonna run the apt update and apt install CrowdSec for this. Okay, and this should be quite fast. Okay, so CrowdSec is installed now, and the next thing that we are gonna need to do is to install the firewall bouncer. So basically this will be the one that it will communicate with the firewall, install the firewall and see what security vulnerabilities are out there, and it will go into the firewall and it will block them. and we are gonna do that. Okay, again the video that talks about CrowdSec, it has all of these details and explain you in more details what all of this it's doing, so you can check that. So right now we should have IP tables set up and installed, and in here you see that IP table it's functional, and in here it added a CrowdSec chain. Right now the block traffic, it will be only what CrowdSec it will decide to block in here based on what it sees in the logs. And in here, for instance, if you want to restrict also the ports in here, so it will be like a second firewall besides the one that we have in the VPS provider, you have the options to just go and add the ports that you want to the connections in here. But I will not gonna do that because I already have a firewall set up on the VPS provider. And this is just to persist the rules that we've added in there. Okay, and right now we have some CrowdSec commands that you can run to see that this is working, and we are gonna run them so we can see some of the details. So we see that CrowdSec right now it's up and running. This we are going to see the configuration. So you see that in here it has the Linux SSHD package in here, while it's good actor. So this is what CrowdSec installed by default to verify the bouncers are active. Okay, so CrowdSec firewall bouncer, it's active right now. You can link also the CrowdSec to their site to see also the detail in there, so you can see more details. So in here you have also some commands to see some alerts and things like that, in case you want to see the details with more things. And in here you have the options to see also the log for this. And right now you see that it's monitoring these logs, out, syslog, kernel log for threat attempts. So right now our server is better protected in case someone will want to brute force or do something. CrowdSec it will see and it will ban it. Of course you can configure this with traffic and nginx and so on if you want. And right now what we are going to do next is to let's go first and see if that we are properly logged in here. So I will disconnect from this server in here. I want to see if I can log in with Dragos. If everything was done properly, you see that right now you are logged in. You see in here that I am with Dragos, and we're gonna run the sudo su- to move on the root and install the Dokploy. So basically, to install Dokploy, you just need to run this command and it will install everything for you. And this it will go and install Docker. It will install Dokploy, the latest version, and at the end we should have an working Dokploy installation that we can access it with 3000 port and the IP server. We're gonna then add an certificate to this, and this should take about 1 minute or two to install and configure everything. Okay, so right now we see that the server is installed, and what I will gonna do first, because it will take some time for the DNS to be changed, I will gonna put a subdomain for Dokploy to point to this server IP. So in here I'm using Cloudflare, and I'm having a domain already, but it's pointing to the previous IP. So what I will gonna do in here, I will gonna create an A record. You can just add the record with add record like this. Let me delete this and start from beginning so you can understand. So I'm gonna hit add record, and in here you have the type with A, and in here I will put cloud for this, because this was the name of my server, and I will copy the IP address for this. So right now I will not enable any proxy for this, because I want to set the Let's Encrypt certificate for this. So right now cloud is added and it's pointing to our server. What we're gonna do next is to log in the UI and set everything in there. Okay, so I did this in the past, but since then Dokploy changed a lot. So in here I will put the name. So I will put bit12. I have a dragosh@bit12.com email address for this. I will set a password. Okay, right now I will hit register, and you see that I'm already logged in here. Let me save this. So this is the new interface, let's say, for the Dokploy, and this changed in the last months. And in here we're gonna need to go and add the SSL certificate to our system. But in here you're gonna see that you have projects, you have the monitoring for this server, schedule, traffic file system with details. This is the Docker installation. You can add Swarm if you want. You can add nodes to this. Okay, requests. This is the web server. And in this area, we're going to go and put our domain, so we can access this without the IP address. So right now you see in here that we're using the IP address for this with the port. We don't want to do that. And afterwards we can remove from the firewall the 3000 port. But in here let's put the domain. So the domain was cloud.bit12.com. Okay, and in here I'll put the IP address for Let's Encrypt. And I will enable HTTPS for this certificate provider. It will be Let's Encrypt. So right now, if we're going to hit save, we are going to add this domain. So right now, the domain, it should be added. So if we're going to log in with this, let's put HTTPS. You're going to see that you will have a certificate for this, which is verified with Let's Encrypt. And right now, if you're going to put the email and the password, you're gonna be sent again in here, and then you will access the server securely, and then you can go and add your projects and applications in here. We can see in here, for instance, the disk space in the monitoring section. This will be a brief overview, because in the next videos we're going to go and add some application for monitoring in here, and other applications that I'm using. We're gonna deploy an GitHub application to see how this is working. And right now you see that the memory usage is very low on this server. CPU usage, again, it's not that high. You have the disk and so on. So basically this is a default monitoring thing. And again, in here you have the profile details with the password, and you can change the avatar if you want in here. You can add remote server, you can add users if you want in here. You can add SSH keys. You have AI that you can add. You can add the GitHub connections in here, but we're going to do that when we're going to deploy our application, because we're gonna need to link it to GitHub or the provider we're having, so it can fetch the latest changes in there. You can create a registry for your Docker images. You can add S3 destinations for backups. In here you have the certificate options. Clusters, in here you'll see the notification. In the account you have again these options. You can change from dark to light. You have also some languages in here. And yeah, right now we're at the latest version of Dokploy, and until now we managed to install Dokploy securely, and right now we'll be ready to go to the next step and start deploying some project with application. In here you can create a project with these details, and we're gonna do that when we're going to deploy next the monitoring application for our websites and for our servers, so you can see how this it's working. So thanks for watching. We're gonna see more in the next video. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe.